Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Mannino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. It's Michael Mannino, and welcome to Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who share their experience with you, the audience, how they got to where they're at today. And Jimmy, from the beautiful island of Wellington, Florida, we have Anthony Phillips. How you doing, young man?
I'm doing well today.
Hey, thanks for being on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Anthony is a attorney, right?
A director of attorney recruiting.
A director of oh, there you go. I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. A director of recruiting attorney. That's awesome. Can you tell everybody where you're at and how you got to where you're at today?
Yeah, so I'm with probably the fastest growing litigation firm in the country. Really exciting place. I'm here because of Eric Boyer, who runs the firm, and he's just an incredible person, a lightning rod, just tons of energy. But he's a builder, and that's something I've always been. I love to build things. I love to improve things. I like to be at places where there's stuff to do, things to improve, stuff to grow. That's just important to me. So that's kind of brought me to this point. I spent a lot of my early career in healthcare, part of some pretty innovative stuff. When I moved to Florida maybe 10 years ago, some of that was changing for me, and I had to find a new way. And no matter what I've done through my whole career, I've always been involved in building the teams and hiring people and interviewing, even though that wasn't my job or what I was doing. It's just, it's kind of a leadership thing that I always had, being able to connect with people, being able to read people. And so as I was kind of rebooting myself here in Florida, I said, let me try to dive into this, just doing this, just, building teams, just bringing in people. That took me to a pretty large plaintiffs firm, which brought me to this firm, defense firm, and just helping them grow and build. And we're just blowing up around the country. A lot of mergers, a lot of growth.
Nice. I like you're buying companies to make your company bigger. Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. In your space, is there a lot of competition? And if there is, what sets you apart? What comes easy to you that comes challenging to other people? You started to dive into it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it's an extremely competitive space, especially the trying to acquire attorneys, trying to acquire good attorneys, which is how a firm will grow. They can bring in business, but you need people to do the work that you bring in, or you need people that have more work to bring. So this firm is very different. It's structured differently. It operates very entrepreneurial. It operates like a business. A lot of creativity and autonomy, not a lot of red tape, bureaucracy, things you would traditionally see at a sort of a law firm. They may do things that may be ego driven, or just we've always done it this way, or that really don't make business sense. This firm is a business. It's like what do we, if we're going to make a decision, if we're going to do something, it just makes sense. And it's like that's such a refreshing thing to be a part of.
I could only imagine. I know there's a lot of times that people working. It's nice to have a system and process, but it's also very nice to have the freedom, the creativity to do what you need to do.
Absolutely.
Awesome. If someone listening to us wants to get better at what you do, what suggestions would you give them, and what tips and tricks would you give them?
Yeah, I would say I'm a very build the airplane in the air or build the parachute on the way down kind of person. So same way I learned to swim when I was a kid, somebody threw me in the water, and it was like, you swim. So, not to be cliche about that, but it's just like, I think you have to just start somewhere. You have to be willing to, we talked about this when we were talking before, we started about martial arts. You have to kind of learn how to lose or to fail or to get knocked down, but have that be a part of the journey of learning, growing, building, that it's like, okay, I may not know everything going into this, but I have to start somewhere. And you're going to need tenacity. You're going to need to, you're going to have to learn as you do. Sometimes you will not have the answer, and you got to be honest with yourself and honest with others, and just keep keep pushing forward, keep learning.
And that's okay. It's okay that you don't have the answer. You'll get the answer relatively soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were talking about martial arts, and yeah, the amount of lessons I learned in martial arts, I should write a book, and how it applies to business.
Yeah.
Because just, we talked earlier and we said, hey, listen, to take a punch, just to take a punch in business, and a lot of people take a punch and then they quit. We take a punch and keep fighting because we know another one's coming.
Yeah. Nobody wants to get hit, but you got to learn how to deal with it because it's part of life.
It is part of life. I agree. The martial arts is life. We could talk about. We could have a whole podcast on that. So, what is one of the biggest challenges you had to overcome in your career, and how did you do it?
The biggest challenges. It may have been partly from my background growing up, where things like extra education, career, that's a whole other subject, but it was really not emphasized or encouraged. Financial success, climbing the ladder, getting an education, none of that. It was actually the opposite. It was like, you need to live a simple life. You need to do this. It was very different. So I would say being raised that way was some things I had to unlearn over like the next 20 years. So 20 years of kind of learning that, and then 20 more years of learning that, it's okay to be successful. It's okay to have a good career. It's okay to get extra education, which is maybe, some people, a small group of people may hear that and relate to it. Other people may not know what that means. Like, oh, what do you mean? Like, people didn't want you to, and it's like, yeah, they didn't. It was not encouraged. In fact, it was discouraged. So I would say professionally, that was something big to overcome, was just the mentality, that mentality you're raised with or that surrounds you when you're young.
How you raised, getting over that is probably one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. Quick question for you. So if you could go back to your early 20s, what would you, and knowing everything you know now, what would you do different and what would you do the same?
I definitely would have taken more risks, and I would have focused more inward. I think when people say self-care, maybe they misunderstand what that means, but I would have focused on working out, focused on discipline, focused on eating right, focused on focusing, just completely had a different mindset, because you're young and you feel like you're going to live forever. And sometimes you don't think about that stuff, but for me, it was like, those are the kind of things now that help me be outwardly successful, is by kind of focusing inward. Become a disciplined person, become a healthy person, mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever it is you need. Put that first, and you'll be a rock going forward. So I definitely would have taken better care of myself, and then just taken more risks and believed in bigger things that I could do professionally, and just not think, oh, well, this isn't for me, or I can't do that. I would have just been a bull and ran forward.
Did you learn a lot of that mentality from martial arts?
Yeah. And I just think bumps along the way. Like you said, martial arts is life, and when you get into it, you realize it's like how that would have helped you early on, because this is life. Life is all these bumps and challenges, and that resilience. Sometimes you build it one way, just organically by going through things, and then sometimes you put yourself in a situation like martial arts where you force yourself to learn.
Life is coming, whether you want it to or not.
Every day.
You might as well learn to defend yourself in it.
Yeah.
You got anything that like books or podcasts that you could recommend that changed your outlook on life?
Oh, for books, there was a lot of leadership books. I remember.
Which ones would you recommend?
Trying to think what's one of the last that I read that was, one that I read that this is probably way off base, but I think it's something so interesting, was the Kabbalion, which is like an esoteric book. It's like this, it's almost like mysticism, the 7 hermetic principles. But when you read that, you understand that there's a lot of self-help and manifesting and all these different things that were built off of this single old book. But it's just interesting. It just gives you kind of it just expands your mind, and it's not complicated, but takes away kind of the religious aspect and just this is the nature of reality. This is the way reality works, and I just feel like it's a super interesting book. You don't have to believe everything it says, and it doesn't make any big claims, but it's just really interesting. That was a good one. I remember reading, Think and Grow Rich, which again to me is an offshoot of this older book. It's that same type of thing about manifesting, about having a mindset, about what is consciousness and how it relates to everything else. Any books on leadership, Jocko's books. I read some of those that were really good. I'm trying to think of anything recently that I picked up that just blew my mind. 4-Hour Work Week. Some of these more interest, just to change your perspective. If you can pull one thing out of it, that changes how you think. You don't have to necessarily apply everything in the book, but there might be one little thing you're like, I'm going to start doing that. And mostly for me, it is listening to a lot of podcasts, listening to people that just present themselves really well. I love to listen to Andrew Huberman because I love the health stuff. Solid guy. And some of the others, there's I think it's Diary of a CEO. It has some good stuff on there that I like. They have some good business life oriented stuff, and then a lot of them just for fun, just to relax, or just when I'm sitting in the sauna.
Nice. So you said you're building a lot of teams. When you're building a dream team, what is one of the traits you always look for and why?
I would say, it's this might be cliche also, but I'm of this philosophy that, I'm not impressed by someone's education or what they've done before. To me, it's like, what kind of a person are you? Do you have tenacity? Do you have grit? Do you want to work hard? You can teach that person anything. There's obviously some kind of exception to that. It's like if they're going to become a doctor or an attorney, there's a lot to learn. But just overall, it's like I'll take that person with the grit and the drive over anybody else, no matter how much experience they have, because it's what matters. And it doesn't, they'll learn what they have to learn, and they'll work harder than anybody.
Agreed. So here's a question for you on fighting, and we'll kind of relate it to business. What would you take? What would you take? Someone that has heart, experience, or talent in the ring?
I would have to say experience. If you have all three, you're a real problem.
You're a real problem, exactly.
But I think just experience from everything I've seen, especially in martial arts. There are naturally gifted people that may be just starting out. They might be a white belt, and they are naturally gifted physically, everything. But they, someday they'll be a killer, but they're not right now. And heart matters, but.
Have you seen people that have natural talent? I'm relating this to business too. You've seen people that have natural talent and just don't follow through.
Yeah. And that was probably me, honestly, when I was younger in my 20s, because people would tell me and I didn't believe them. And again, this goes back to the way I was raised. It was just, it's like, you're so talented, you're wasting this, you're not doing that. And I was like, whatever.
Right.
It was like, eh. And so I didn't really believe it, or two, it didn't matter. But again, it's like, it was kind of like wasted talent.
Yeah. Well, you're not wasting anymore.
No, sir.
Sounds like things are going pretty well for you. And thinking about the future, have you ever created passive income, and how have you done that? And if you have.
Yeah. I would say it hasn't been on my mind as much lately. Just my life is extremely busy. But I did start a company while I still had my company. This was when I was working in the pharmaceutical world, and while all that was going on, I started a cannabis company on the side. Somewhat passive. I could see elements of it that could have been more passive, where I was more involved. The usual, the investing. Anytime you can build an audience, it comes into my mind. Like, I have something at 10,000 plus connections on like LinkedIn. My mind always goes to monetizing in some way, influence or connections. So it's always there in the back of my mind. I've done it somewhat before. The cannabis company became less passive, but there were elements or other people that I saw doing something similar that were doing it more passively than what I was doing. So, and just the usual things, investing.
Stocks and bonds and stuff like that.
Yeah, playing around with stocks, crypto.
There you go, crypto. There you go. Awesome. I can't thank you enough for the time you gave it to us, and really do appreciate it. Wrapping up the interview, what do you got exciting coming up for the next 6 to 12 months?
Oh, next 6 to 12 months. Trying to push, taking the firm in another direction, growing the corporate side, moving us into, higher AmLaw rankings. For me, personally, just continue on the health path, build my team larger. I was already kind of considering that, but as we came into the fourth quarter, it was like, well, maybe now's not the time, but probably, expand the team, test new things, just keep driving, turn this into, something that's, going to be the number one in the country someday. It's not now, but I can see it going there.
Well, that's awesome, dude. That's fantastic. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing your insights. And if anybody would like to get in touch with you, do some conversations, what would you suggest? How would they do that?
I mean, the easiest way is probably, for professional things through LinkedIn. I'm very open on there. I even have my Calendly link on there. I try to make myself extremely available. But Anthony Phillips on LinkedIn. Everything else, all my other socials are pretty much just, personal in nature, like, Instagram and stuff.
You got yourself fighting on some of those?
No. I mean, sometimes they don't really allow recording at my gym. But I'll have some things on there, and the kids too, because my kids are also in, like jiu-jitsu and stuff. So
that's I can tell you how huge that is. I raised 2 kids. I have a wife and 2 kids. All of us are black belts.
Amazing.
And we're not afraid of a lot of things in this world. I think
it makes you very calm.
Well, it humbles you too. I mean, it's, I guess what it does is it teaches you that, stuff's coming at you no matter what. And then just how to handle it, and just do the best you can with what you got and then move on.
Yeah.
When I got to my master's degree, the instructor asked me, "What do you think a master is?" And I said, "A true master doesn't believe he is one."
Yeah.
Hey, listen, thanks a lot for being on the show, and we're going to let you go. Appreciate it. And to everybody else, who do me a favor and like and subscribe and hit the notification button. And if you guys have any questions, give Anthony a call on LinkedIn or connect with him on some socials. Appreciate your time, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.